The dates of this is going to be November 6, 2018. We're going to have this two-round top two cutthroat Kyrgyzstan postmodern mayoral election. All right, the first postmodern mayoral election in Pueblo City's history. The two-round top two cutthroat Kyrgyzstan election was decided this year by the current city council. Instead of instant runoff voting, instead of ideal democracy, they went with a shitty, not even a pragmatic democracy. They went with the the cutthroat Kyrgyzstan model. So the cutthroat Kyrgyzstan model is going to essentially, you have 23 candidates and you're going to have to whittle them down to just one or two. So 21 of these candidates will not, pass go. They will not win. They will not gain anything. So a lot of them should work on their plan Bs, right? What are they going to do with their life if they, basically, 80, 90% of these candidates will not win. They will not win. So they need, to come up with some other plans. There's 3 or 4 ways to get rid of a city council man or woman. You could fire them immediately as soon as they miss 2 days. If they miss 2 days, then that is already null and void. Their fucking seat is vacant. It's by the procedure of the city council. But if you missed 2 days, then in 1 year, unexcused. So I'm sure they could just say, I had an excuse. But if there are 2 days that are unexcused in 1 year, then they get fired. So the dates, January 22nd will be the election day for the second runoff if nobody breaks the 50% threshold on November 6, 2018. So Jackie Massey, if he's able to pull off the impossible, he'll just go ahead and take the mayoral seat on November 6, 2018. And then on January 8th, 2019, Uncle Jackie will assume power. And then Pueblo City will begin our century of light. This is the second enlightenment. The first enlightenment was never completed, and the romantic era is not above the enlightenment era. You can't really get past the enlightenment. This is always the enlightenment era. It should, be centuries of light. So that's January 22nd would be the second runoff election day. January 8th is when the mayor will take power if they're elected on November 6th. I'm not for sure the day they'll take power if they win January 22nd. This matters because exactly what moment does Sam Azad have zero power versus when he has all the power, which he currently does. Sam Azad has been the dictator, the Fuhrer of Pueblo City for the past 5 years. Benevolent, looks like a gentleman, seems like he's an okay person, but he's the dictator. He's the head enchilada. He is the king fish, the king gazelle, the king wildebeest, the king bear, the king, what the fuck ever. So, somebody once said that this is a citizen quote, the homelessness and prostitution on 4th Street is a problem because it's primarily fueled by 2 factors. The city's only needle exchange program is on the 4th Street on the east side, and all of the city's criminals are released onto the east side through the halfway house on Erie Street. So the criminals are released through the halfway house on Erie Street on the east side. So that's, a bummer. And then on 4th Street, or something about needle exchange. So there's a needle exchange, the only one over there, and then there's city's criminals are released. So east side has a lot of shit to combat, right? Anyways, there's 3 or 4 ways that city council people can be kicked out. They can be recalled for any fucking reason, right? So there's that. But the laws, according to the charter, the current 2018 charter, because they went ahead and implemented all those changes already. So if they are permanently incapacitated, if something happens to them, a heart attack or anything worse, right? And if they're incapacitated, right? Even if they're like trapped under a mountain or in a cave somewhere or in a submarine, on the moon, who knows? But physically or mentally, if they're permanently incapacitated and they cannot perform the duties of his office. The 1954 charter is a very gender specific document. So his office, does that mean only men can be city councilmen? Well, apparently all 7 are city councilmen, so this gender-specific document probably has been institutionalized in sexism for quite some time. That seems to be something that somebody should do in the first 100 days of their administration, make the gender-specific charter into gender-neutral language. So there's, women can become city council women, or city council people too, right? So they're just as smart and just as capable. Our charter needs to reflect that. So any officer after the final conviction of a felony shall have to give up his office. Again, if a council man elected from a district moves from such district during his term of office, his office is automatically declared vacant. So if a councilman moves out of his district, if he's declared guilty of a felony, which is, I don't know, I know it's murder and rape, but I wonder if like heroin and some of that shit is up there too, but convicted of a felony, or permanently incapacitated, or if they skip 2 days, then you can kick the city council people out. Now, there's a couple of quotes. I, write a whole bunch of stuff, but there's some things these are my favorite things, okay? So, I wanted to mention different ways that the city council people could lose their jobs. Those are all the 3 or 4 ways, per the charter that they could lose their jobs. This one quote here: my ultimate theory of government is that the city is made up of people, and the people are the heart of a democracy. And so because the city is made up of people, that is where all of the democracy comes from. And then the democracy starts at the local level, then the state, then the federal government. So those are my 3 tiers. And then, actually I do cede one power to the United Nations, that to declare war. So they get to basically, who's the aggressor, who's not the aggressor. I would cede, I would listen to the world. That's the world body. So that's something you need to take into account for really any decision. Sure, I guess we can be unilateral and do as the fuck as we please, because the United Nations don't have any teeth unless the United States leads the pack. But that's So this quote here: if the municipal bodies were made powerful and independent, the authorities of the nation might be disunited and the peace of the country endangered. So he's sitting there saying, if we give authority to all the local governments, we're going to have 100 local home rule cities, which is what Colorado has. Colorado has a lot of home rule cities, meaning that the ultimate power of the people lies in the city, lies in the sovereignty of the city, and then the state, then the federal government. So there's 100 home rule cities that have declared their autonomy, their sovereignty, and their right to, right to exist, right to be, right to have state power. So they have state power, and all of them should know that. So if the municipal bodies were made powerful and independent, the authorities of the nation might be disunited, the peace of the country endangered. Yet without power and independence, a town may contain good subjects, but it could have no active citizens. So he's sitting there saying that if we don't have cities, if we don't put the power in local governments, then people aren't going to be practicing their craft and speaking, and we're not going to get any good politicians. We're only going to have a few select to choose from. So even though by giving power to the local governments, allowing all of your what's that country, Catalonia, allowing all your Catalonias essentially the option to secede, to step out of the state or step out of the union. What is it? So, may contain good subjects, but it can have no active citizens. So that's Alexis Touqueville, The Public Spirit of Townships of New England, Chapter 5, Democracy in America. Now there's about 10 sentences here. This is from my verified response. This is historic stuff, okay? So I'm just going to read this straight off. The sentence 69, replacing the charter is much different than amending the charter. Amending the charter is changing this one law, or maybe those two. Ballot question 2A is a 70-plus amendment, 21-page hurricane, which changes everything. Sentence 70, ballot question 2A changes all 3 branches of government. The executive branch gains nominating and firing power over the judicial branch. The legislative branch loses their hiring and firing power over both the executive and the judicial branch. The judicial branch will have less lawsuits against the government of Pueblo City because of the new immunity for city employees clause in section 6.4. Ballot question 2A is blatantly unconstitutional on its face. It's blatantly, okay? So the facts of the case: on June 12th, 2017, Councilman Ed Brown introduced the strong mayor form of government ballot referendum to Pueblo's city council. 14 days later, June 26, 2017, just before 9 p.m. at a regular city council meeting, Pueblo City Council, Steve Noraki, the chair, Ray Aguilera, Ed Brown, Chris Nickel, Bob Schilling, Lori Winter, and Larry Atencio unanimously passed ordinance number 9134, the unconstitutional mayor referendum, into law. The sentence 74, Steve Noraki, the president of City Council, warned the few citizens of Pueblo who were prepared to speak to City Council at their public forum. The city attorney is on guard, watching out the policy, and will alert me to lower the gavel. Then Mr. Daniel C. Kagavsek started the discussion on June 26, 2017, on the mayor referendum with what Steve Noraki called a staff report. Okay, so they're going to pass it. June 26th, they're going to pass it. Then November, their people, 18% is going to pass it again. So we're going to come back to that first. Here's another really good passage. This is a good analysis of the current mayoral race. There is lots of races right now. There is a commissioner race. There is, a sheriff's race, even though nobody's running against any of these. Assessor, surveyor, sheriff, governor's race. There's the regents. There's the schools, the regents, university, the state level, state executive positions, governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, treasurer, and others. So that's, and midterms. So Scott Tipton is running for office too. So there's a whole bunch of shit that's going on. Now, the overcrowded mayoral field, I don't understand the phenomenon, but I would rather have more candidates than less. So I can't, this shit show, I cannot turn it off. I can't watch anything else. There has to be a dark horse candidate who's going to break free. Which one of these candidates is going to take all of them? There's 23 candidates, and none of them are the super, popular person that, is just going to trounce everybody else. I think Gradisar has it, basically he's the strongest establishment, so if there is one person that is going to break the 50% threshold, it would be Gradisar. But I think that that's very unlikely. So any of these candidates could be a dark horse candidate. They could be the Luke Skywalker shot into the Death Star. So I think every single one of these has a greater chance, but just the establishment have 5, 6, 7, or 8% more of a chance. What's going to happen is which of these machines, right? Every one of these are individuals and they're people, and they, their bodies are their machines and their voice, but they're political machines. They're, how far can they reach out? How many people can they communicate to? How much money do they have? How much influence? How much power? And, what about their tactics? What kind of tactics are they going to do with their campaign? So there's 23 candidates. They're going to be dwindled down to 21. It's an overcrowded field already. There is no, front runner. There is nobody that's going to break free. So what's going to happen? Which dark horse candidate is going to break free above the others by 1 or 2%, barely ahead, just in the nick of time, beating the others? It could be anybody. It's anybody's ball game. There's no clear front runner, although there's clear establishment insider front runners. Gradisar, Noraki, Atencio, Flores, I guess. He is a city councilman currently, and clear anti-establishment outsider front runners as well. The alternative vision of Tony Pemberton and Janet Wilson and Jackie Massey and Charlotte Perez and whoever. Those are the top 4 that I think for each one of those. The anti and the establishment. So since there's no clear breakover 50% of the popular vote, actually, I don't know. I want to reconsider some of that, but yeah. So the clear break over the 50% of the popular vote in the first round election, there is not one person that's going to break that 50% threshold. Unfortunately, sorry, Uncle Jackie. I think it'll be all right. But you'll get him in the next one. You'll be able to show more people, and you'll have the even platform to be able to share your ideas with everybody. The paper will have to cover what you say when you're the other choice. So that's my understanding of this, is that you're going to have 23 candidates. They're all going to have about 5, 6, 7, 8%, the winner is only going to be a 13%er at the most a 13%er, and at the least a 6%er. So the insider candidates are going to be 6 or 7% already. So, which one of these machines is going to just push forward and just barely in the nick of time, right? Just by a nose, by a thread, by a hair, by a cunt hair, if you will, as people say. So, if that is how close this election is, right? It's anybody's ball game. It is anybody's ball game to assume that Armando cannot win this. Armando Vigil has just as equal chance, if not more, right? So there's, let's see, the second round of Pueblo's 2-round voting system will kick in because nobody is going to be the front runner. So it will come down to the top two. It will come down to the top 2 candidates of 23. So that's still 21 losers, right? Instead of 22 losers. And then we have to have a whole nother fucking election all over again. That's going to happen on November 6, 2018. 21 heads are going to be rolling on November 6, 2018. So 21 people need to have plan B, right? To go do something else. And this is unfortunate. This isn't my decision. This is, there's a lot of the people that are running's decisions. I wanted it to be instant runoff voting. I want a cordial race. I want it ranked choice voting, preferential voting. I want the fairest, most idealist, perfect democracy for a presidential election ever devised. I wasn't going to go to a no parliamentary system. I wanted a presidential system, and the best presidential system is an instant runoff or ranked choice or preferential voting system. That's the best system there is. But instead, the city council, and they make it sound like it was part of Strong Mayor, which 70 changes were a part of it, but the people didn't know about 69 of those 70 changes. They just knew about the damn mayor. And it was 12,000 out of 24,000, so 18% of the 35% of the people who voted, so they barely won just by a few hundred votes. So they got to change the entire government by ballot initiative, by the skin of their chinny chin chin. And perhaps they might win it by their chinny chin chin too. For continuity's sake, for the conservative sake, I just feel like the Kingfish is the main candidate, but perhaps by pointing that out, the criticisms will get sharper. Maybe he'll actually become progressive. That's what Richard Nixon did in order to beat George McGovern. Nixon said, I'm going to get you out of Vietnam, and you know what? He did. Basically, his peace talks led to the end of Vietnam, of the Vietnam War. So perhaps Gradisar could just all of a sudden become the populist, progressive, leftist Democrat who actually believes in the people and working class, the homeless and poor and working classes, the working masses. So we'll have another mayoral election, find out who the Pueblo's mayor is at the end of January 2019 from only the top 2 candidates of 23 picked this November 6th. So 23 candidates are going to be dwindled, are going to be grinded, are going to be whittled down to just 2. So like a survivor match, the instant runoff voting would have just taken the last place. It would take half the losers or whatever and wiped them out. But then once you had 10 candidates, it would just take the very last place. It would take the last place loser and it would pop that guy off or lady and then redistribute their votes to their second choice. And then if there's still no 50% winner, knock the number 9 loser, then the number 8 loser, and then the number 7 loser. And all you needed to do as a voter is just rank the 23 candidates, 10 of them. If you wanted the top 10, which one of these candidates did you want? But instead of picking the top 10, we only picked the top 1 now. So they made it very, very basic for us stupid plebeians because we don't know how to rank shit. We can't rank stuff in, 1 through 10. It's the hardest thing in the world to rank stuff. Get the hell out of here. I could rank the states. I could rank colors. I could rank anything, to say that you can't rank it. It's also a matter of taste, too. So, there is some logic to the thing, but anyways, so instead of having a survivor where the last placer loser is eliminated and then their votes are redistributed, so essentially having 10 runoff elections, instead we're only going to have 2 runoff elections. 21 of the candidates are going to get wiped out from the beginning. We're going to get a 13% or a 7%, winner right? And then those 17 or those 13 versus a 7%er will go against each other, and we'll get a manufactured majority candidate by just having those two candidates run against each other January 22nd. So, in 21 heads, in one fell swoop, Puebloans are going to sink 21 of these 23 boats of these self-appointed saints and heroes of the people in one day, in one moment, in one fell swoop. On November 6, 2018, at least 21 heads will be rolling. So some more historic passages. The city manager's office cannot be dissolved by the criminal mayor referendum. This is all illegal. What are you guys doing? So the charters for home rule cities in Colorado are constitutionally protected per the Pueblo Aircraft Service Incorporated v. the City of Pueblo 1980 court case, Supreme Court case. Sentence 40 home rule cities are protected under the current Colorado Constitution of 1876 per Colorado's 20th Amendment, which not only gives the local municipal corporate government constitutional standing, but per Justice Dennison, power as broad as possible within the scope of a Republican form of government of the state, per the Fort Collins v. PUC 1921 Supreme Court decision. So how much power does Pueblo City have? They have state power, as much as Denver and as much as Washington, D.C., and then some. The sentence 41, the government of Pueblo City has the power of state action, i.e. the monopoly of force. 42, plaintiff and defendant agree that local concerns are governed by local charter and ordinance. Pueblo controls Pueblo, and that statewide concerns are governed by state statutes. Denver controls all of Colorado, including Pueblo City. Plaintiff and defendant both agree that when Denver's not in Pueblo, Pueblo City controls Pueblo. Denver controls Pueblo, Colorado in matters of statewide concern and for local matters such as election and recall. By the whole bunch of court cases, Laverty v. Straub, 1943, International Brotherhood of Police Officers, Local 127 v. Denver, 1974, Burnsin v. City of Boulder, 1974. Pueblo's government controls Pueblo City. So in local concerns, we both agree, me and Dan Kagavsek agreed that Pueblo City controls Pueblo City for local concerns, and that Denver controlled Pueblo City in statewide concerns. Now, the question became when it came to the mixed statewide and local concerns. So I lean towards local control and Dan leaned towards state control. Case law varied per individual basis depending on what the subject matter was. From a strict constructivist perspective, Section 1.2 Pueblo's charter mandates that a charter convention must be called up before the form of Pueblo City's municipal corporate government is changed, whether it's just the judicial, legislative, or executive branch, or all three. The full text of the legendary Section 1.2 of Pueblo's current operating document, the Charter of 1954, the 7-year hit movie screens in Pueblo, starring Marilyn Monroe. Section 1.2. This is no longer part of Pueblo law anymore. So this is history. Section 1.2, form of government. The municipal government provided by this charter shall be known as the council manager government and shall not be changed except by charter convention upon majority vote of the qualified voters, pursuant to its provisions and subject only to limitations imposed by the state constitution and by this charter. All powers of the city shall be vested in an elective council. Sentence 48, if ballot question 2A is allowed to stand, then the council manager form of government via the dissolution of the city manager's office and the enforcement of dozens of other amendments will cease to exist. Instead of a council manager form of government, Pueblo will have a strong mayor form of government. That contradicts the third sentence of the first page of Pueblo City's central governing document, which dictates that the municipal corporation that is known as the City of Pueblo must forever and ever, always and forever, from here until eternity, be the council manager government and shall not be changed except by charter convention upon majority vote of the qualified voters. One could misinterpret the majority vote of the qualified voters part of Section 1.2 as meaning only those select few in government, but that's incorrect. Sentence 50, the majority vote of the qualified voters are the masses, the public, the voters who are properly registered to vote, and the Pueblo City voters who are properly registered to vote never voted for a charter convention. Sentence 51, until a majority of Pueblo's registered voters vote for a charter convention, the city's manager's office cannot be dissolved. Sentence 52, ballot question 2A is unconstitutional, so therefore it is null and void. I think Sam Azad's just going to go willfully quit. He's not really going to fight for the position. He doesn't seem like he's this actually might be a good little ending for him. It does add a little bit of democracy, and perhaps by getting a little bit of change, maybe we'll be able to, they're afraid. They didn't want to do the Charter Convention because they thought it was opening Pandora's box. So they said, well, let's just have a mayoral race. Let's just change the entire fucking government. Let's just change the city manager to a mayor, and then, that won't open up Pandora's box. But it seems as if the mayor position has a chance to being exactly as it was before, the exact same, or changing the entire thing. So, is there anything else that I missed here? Right, so prepare for months of rancor. November 6th is going to be the end. August 27th, I predict that 10 of these 23 candidates won't make their signature threshold. And then the other 10, there'll be 10 brand new ones. I want to do Vegas odds for all of them, actually, right now. So I should update my list and then put Vegas odds on what I think. I should do 2 of them. Who do I want to win, and then and how much do I want them to win versus who I think will win. So my predictions versus my hopes, right? So anything else? No, those are my favorite sort of sayings that the quote, not to Saint, but Touqueville. Alexis Touqueville essentially says that cities are where democracy begins. Cities are where the people are. So therefore, in a democracy is of, by, and for the people. The cities are the building blocks of democracy. And of course, just like any status, just like any power-hungry person, wouldn't it be easier just to take over a state or a county, right? Just take over a landmass. So it's basically the same idea, but instead of having state power over all the land, it's state power over the people. And to be honest, I like the balance between the federal and the state governments, and also the county and the city governments too. I like those balances. I also like the 3 branches of government. By having many centers of power, it might seem like all discombobulated, but I think there is a leader, there is, ideal leaders and whatnot. So I think, I don't know, if people, I don't know, it can be good or bad, depending on the people. So yeah, instead of just voting one person off per day, we're going to go ahead and vote 21 off in one day, one moment. Sayonara. See you later. Good riddance. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Hey, hey, hey. Goodbye.